Prepare yourself to be blown away by the seismic sounds and scrutiny of AFTERSHOCKS Podcast with Chris Aiken and Matt Hartnett.
Well, here we go, and welcome to another episode of AFTERSHOCKS on AFTERSHOCKspodcast.com. And joining us today on the podcast, we've got the vocalists from Canadian melodic power metal quartet Unleash the Archers, who are set to release their fifth LP, Abyss, which is set for an August 21st release on Napalm Records. I'd like to welcome to the podcast vocalist Brittney Slayes. Thanks for joining us today, Brittney. How you doing?
Good, thanks. How about you guys?
Not bad, not bad. Thanks for asking. Just real quick before we talk about the new record, I'm sure it has to be very frustrating right now not being able to go out and tour, for the record at this point. And there's obviously a good chance it might be quite some time till we see live music again. How difficult is it to release, a new record while not being able to go out, promote, and celebrate the way you normally would, especially considering that you guys really tour pretty frequently?
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be interesting. We're thinking that it's gonna kind of be one of two ways. It's going to be that the record's going to sell really well because no one can go anywhere or do anything, and they're going to be stoked to get new music, and we're just going to have to do what we can to try and stream and get in front of people as much as possible, or no one's going to be able to afford to buy anything, and it could be totally horrible. Of course we're going to hope for the first option, but
Sure.
you never know. I'm really interested to see how it goes. We're going to do our best to stay in front of everybody, but it's going to be interesting. That's for sure.
Sure, yeah, no, I can imagine. Well, let's talk about the new album, Abyss. It's the band's fifth release now. It's a great record, and interesting enough, this is indeed a concept record. And from what I've read, just in short, it sort of sounds like it's a concept that deals with sort of the battle of good and evil within oneself. Could you go ahead and just tell the listeners a little bit more about the concept that you did come up with for the album?
Sure. So it follows our main character, who we call the Immortal. He's basically our hero. And it's a sequel to Apex, which is the record that we put out in 2017. So in Apex, we were introduced to the Immortal and to our antagonist, the Matriarch. And basically what it is the Immortal is cursed to serve whoever awakens him from his 1,000-year slumbers. And he is awakened by the Matriarch in Apex, and she tasks him with finding her 4 sons and bringing them to her so she can kill them in a ritual to achieve immortality. At the end of Apex, she had promised that she'd set him free once he did this, but of course she lied and betrayed him and sent him back to his mountain to sleep until she had need of him again. In Abyss, he awakens by himself on a starship out in space. The Matriarch is nowhere to be seen. And it turns out his new master is the grandson of the Matriarch and the son of one of the men that he had been forced to kill in the previous album. So, it's really about the Immortal, his struggle with himself, with the evil deeds that he has done in the past, though not of his own volition. He kind of let them happen. Basically, he never fought against it. He always just said to himself, this is my fate. This is what I'm meant to do. I'm just going to go ahead and do it and try not to feel too bad about it. But in Abyss, he really starts to come to terms with what he's done on a personal level and say, maybe I did have a choice this whole time. I can't believe, that I never fought back before. And the grandson of the Matriarch really inspires within him the strength to finally stand up and say, I have control over my own life, and I'm gonna kick some ass.
Right.
Cool.
Brittney, with a story that's that in depth, it's almost like it seems conceptualized more for a book than for music. I mean, I can see translating it to music, but is this from something that you've written previously, or where does this story exactly come from?
No, it was definitely just written for the album. We knew that we wanted to do a concept record when we set out to write Apex and Abyss. And I kind of just started with these two contrasting characters. I knew that I wanted the matriarch, I wanted the villain to be a female sorceress, power hungry and, evil as evil as one can be. And I knew that I wanted the main character, the hero or the protagonist, to be a male that was kind of like a tragic hero type character.
Sure.
So just kind of came from how I figured the two of them would react to one another, and
Sure.
how to make it so that these two super powerful beings didn't just kind of cancel each other out. They both have weaknesses and faults and that kind of thing. So it really just came from there. Yeah, I don't honestly know.
I know this. You're way more creative than I am. That's for sure.
I think I just have one of those overactive imaginations that everyone's always talking about.
Yeah, no kidding.
Great. Yeah.
Aside from the concept, Brittney, the one thing that anybody that has listened to Abyss or Apex or any of your music will understand really quickly is the crazy range that you have vocally. I mean, it's really you literally have one of those voices that I think could fit into more than just metal. You could certainly do opera, and you could certainly do various different styles of music. What was it that led you to doing metal, and have you ever been tempted to try other styles, or have you tried other styles?
Yeah, I actually was classically trained for, that was where I started.
Okay.
In classical music, and I sang mostly classical all throughout my youth, and in I did a lot of musical theater as well, so that's kind of where I learned how to do that belting chest voice. And it wasn't, honestly, I mean, I'd always loved heavy metal, but it wasn't a thing to like front a metal band until I discovered Iron Maiden. And
Okay.
I didn't really realize that kind of metal even existed, because I was constantly listening, like new metal and Tool and Clutch and Pantera and White Zombie, and there's just a lot of different metal bands that I was listening to at the time, but I had never heard of Iron Maiden before. And when I listened to their music for the first time, I was just like, oh, I could do this. And I was like, oh shit, yeah. I mean, I really want to give this a try. And so I started going out to metal shows and seeing a lot of local live bands, and went and saw like Judas Priest in concert and stuff like that, and was just kind of like, yeah, I need to be in a metal band. And it took me a couple of years to to find my metal voice, as it were, I guess you could say, because I'd been singing classical music my whole life.
Sure.
So, and I really didn't want to be like a symphonic metal band. I didn't want to use my classical voice. I wanted to sound like Bruce Dickinson. So there was a struggle for a little while there, but I think I figured it out eventually. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And after now 5 albums, as a band, you guys have been playing around the globe for, quite a while. There's no doubt that the band Unleash the Archers has earned the respect, not only of the fans, but within the press as well. And as a female singer within that power and symphonic metal circles, there's definitely more front women in those circles and scenes than any other subgenre in metal, I believe. Yet I still find that many fans and critics are constantly comparing, vocalists like yourselves and other female vocalists to some of the more well-known front women in the genres. I'll just use a couple, like a Floor Jansen or Simone from Epica. I mean, even though your lyrics, voice, and your styles are completely, extremely different, it's, they kind of always compare. I mean, do you get that often? Because, I mean, do you think fans and the press, comparing you to these more well-known vocalists, do you take that as a compliment, or is that just sort of like a lazy, shallow comparison, considering all the differences that you do have with those other vocalists?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really pay too much attention to it. Anyone that compares me to Floor Jansen is okay in my books, because she's incredible.
Sure.
She can do everything.
Sure.
And she's just incredibly versatile. So, I mean, that's cool, but I just don't really pay any attention, because since the beginning of women in metal, it feels like it's kind of been this, there can be only one mentality. And it's like there's one death metal vocalist, there's one, and they are the top of the top, and you know what I mean? And there's just constantly these surveys and polls and like, who's the best? And like, you don't see that stuff with male vocalists. You don't say like, oh, it's either, it's Rob or Bruce, which one, you never see that. So I don't understand why they do it with women so much. And it's like that really just kind of in the rest of the world. You know, there can be only one superstar female athlete. There can be only one, you know, female CEO. It's like, and that's not the case. So
Right.
like, I just, I don't know, I try not to pay too much attention to it.
Well, that's probably a good thing. Yeah.
Real quick on that same topic though, does it frustrate you, not necessarily for yourself personally, but for your band, that the band is constantly lumped into the symphonic metal thing because you're a female singer, because you guys are not symphonic metal at all. Not, at least not to my ears, but even researching for the interview, I kept seeing symphonic metal band Unleash the Archers. I was like, who's listening to this shit that's not getting that you guys are not, you know, within temptation?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't really pay too much attention to that. We like, people are constantly asking us to what genre are we, and most of the time I just say heavy metal because you know, all metal is good metal to me. And so I think it's just maybe like people that just see a female or hear that I can do like the high stuff and they just automatically go there with that description. Or it's just kind of people that don't want to take the time to listen to us and they just see a chick in the band and they're like, oh, I know exactly what this is going to sound like.
Right.
And that, like, that's cool too. Like if you want to just judge a band by its cover or whatever, that's fine. You're the one that's missing out, right? And you're gonna miss out on a lot of killer bands, not just female fronted bands. You know, you're gonna be like, oh, that looks like a stupid metalcore band or whatever, or like, look at those stupid masks, I'm not gonna listen to them, or you know what I mean? Like, you just, people kind of stereotype all the time, so it's really, they're just doing themselves a disservice when they do that. And one of my favorite things out there is when someone does finally listen and they're like, whoa, what? I'm so sorry, I haven't listened to you sooner. Like, I had no idea you guys sounded like this. And it was like, well, that's on you, buddy.
Exactly. Well, no, and you just brought up a good, you know, the term, they're female fronted, you know, that label. I mean, the one good thing about, you know, at least the power and symphonic metal genres is because there are so many front women, you don't really hear those bands really categorized as quote unquote female fronted. And I've always said that whole term and label, it's ridiculous, because what you're really implying is that the genre and description of the music and the sound is based, you know, it's not based on the music, it's based on a tone, pitch, sound, or just the sex of the individual, you know? So there's really no basis on the music itself, which I feel like not only silly, but very ignorant. And so obviously I'm sure you agree with the same thing with the whole female fronted label. That's it's kind of silly, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you can say, like, if someone's wondering, you know, asking about a band or whatever, they're like, yeah, you know, it's like female fronted death metal or something. It's like, sure, it's cool that it's a chick in the band, but it's totally
still death metal. Yeah, it's still
exactly. It's death metal. And like, what does it matter what the sex of the individual is? You don't say it's like, oh yeah, no, it's black metal, but their bass player is female.
Yeah, exactly. No, yeah, totally, exactly.
You wouldn't say that.
Yeah,
So,
it is. It's silly.
Completely unnecessary.
Sure.
It's just another way to group people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is about metal, but we just love our subgenres, and we just like to subify everything and put them into all these little groups and stuff. And
right,
like,
no, I hear you. Well, Brittney, let's talk about a little bit about Abyss itself. The one thing that really stands out to me listening through it, and I went back and I listened to Apex a few times as well, and I ran them kind of together, trying to put the whole concept together. Abyss is so much stronger in pretty much, at least to my ears, in every facet, vocally, production wise, instrumentation wise. It just feels like you guys really, really, really grew or worked harder, or I don't know why, but it just feels so much more complete than Apex did. A, do you hear that? And B, if you do hear that, what do you think is the reasoning for that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Apex was it wasn't like rushed, but when we got signed to Napalm, we had Time Stand Still already ready to go. And we were like on the cusp of releasing it independently when Napalm was like, no, wait, you know, let's talk. And so we held on to Time Stand Still for a year before we could release it. So by the time that record was out, we were like done with it.
Right.
And we were just like, okay, now we finally get to play these songs live for everybody. We've been jamming them in our jam spot for freaking 18 months here. And so we started writing Apex like right away. So Apex was very much a part of kind of that part of who we were as musicians.
Okay.
And it was just like a more polished version of Time Stands Still. And I think that I mean, it's not like it's a bad record or anything.
No.
But we just definitely, it was the first time that the four of us, Grant, Andrew, Scott, and myself, were like writing a whole record, just us, because Time Stand Still had some tracks from our old guitar player on it and that kind of thing. So it was like really exciting. But it was also kind of like we had this deadline with Napalm that we were trying to meet, and you know, we didn't really take a breather. We just were like, it was constant. And you know, when we finished the touring run of Apex, we were all just like, oh my God, like it's been like 3 years straight. Like we need to take a second here. So for Abyss, we fully just like took all of 2019, well, the first half of 2019 off from music. We played one show. We played 70,000 Tons of Metal in January. And then after that, we like did not see each other again. We were just like, let's back away from this and try and separate ourselves from what we had done in the past.
Right.
And so then in the summer, we sat down and we were like, okay, let's do this. And we really focused on it. And that was all we did. We didn't play any shows or anything. With Apex, we were like playing shows and doing this, that, and the other, and like writing in between it. And you know what I mean? It was just really kind of very scattered. Whereas this was our sole focus. And everything was calculated. I had the story all written out in like a track by track guideline, and it was very much the foundation of everything that we did. Every riff we chose, where it went in the record, we made sure that every song sounded right with, you know, with the one before and the one that came after. And it was all, you know, we really took our time on this one. And I think it's obvious because it's definitely different from the last records that we've done.
Sure.
We tried a lot of new things. We did new things, and we all were super invested in it emotionally. So I think that really comes through as well.
Sure. Does this record spell the end of this story, or will you continue kind of writing new chapters to the story and become more of a conceptualized band, you know, as you continue?
I have ideas for the next album, and they are not this story. So,
Okay.
But I kind of like left it open-ended specifically for that reason. So it's the end of this particular saga, I guess you could say, the Matriarch versus the Immortal. But I could do a prequel, or I could do what happens to the Immortal afterwards, where he goes from here. You know, I'm sure he's going to come up against some other evil entity that requires eradication. There's people that were asking, because there's like a 50-year gap in, you know, the story of between what happens on Apex and Abyss. So that I've had fans that are like, are you going to tell us what happened during that? And so that's an idea. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of possibility, but for me personally, I'm not going to write the next record about this. No.
All right. Do you find it tougher, Brittney, each time you write a new record to come up with a new concept or ideas? Being, because you know that your lyrics are very deep and profound. Is it tougher each time you do go into writing a new record?
I mean, yeah, like the last 5 years of us has been about this story, really. Because we started writing, I wrote the whole story back in 2016 when we were writing Apex, and then we just did like the first half of it, the Apex half. But the story's always been there. So yeah, I mean, I kind of don't remember what it was like to not write this.
Yeah.
Demons of the Astro Waste was a concept record, but it was it was done very differently. It was like the riff inspired the story every time, basically. So Braden would come up with a riff and he'd be like, oh yeah, this one's cool. And I'd be like, yeah, that sounds like, you know, like a battle is happening. This next song, he's going to go to battle, you know, and like, it was just kind of very off the cuff. And then Time Stands Still, each song was it was all a part of a bigger whole of what it was like, what it's like being an independent band in Canada is what it was really written about.
Okay.
But each song was kind of its own little aspect. But I really, really enjoyed writing Apex and Abyss this way.
Okay.
So honestly, I didn't find it really difficult lyrically because I had it so formed in my head already. So it was basically just like, okay, I have the song. Now I just need to puke out all these things that I've been thinking of for so long. So it was just basically like, okay, how do I say this as articulately and eloquently as possible? So
well, I mean, these are unique times right now, Brittney. Obviously, where bands have to get real creative, in order to connect to their fan base and promote their music, obviously. And, you guys right now with your brand new release coming out is a great example of that. And I saw you guys have this thing I saw on your social media called a virtual pub. And that's the first time I've seen anyone doing that. So just tell us a little bit what that's about. And, other than that, and other than obviously doing these podcasts with, a lot of, different platforms, what are the ways and means can a band use right now in order to promote their music and connect with the fans at this time?
Well, the virtual pub was actually a friend of ours that did that. He had a bunch of singers and musicians from other bands come together for like a night of drinking. And I was just one of the guests, basically. And there's this one band called, I think it's Kraken or I can't remember exactly. And he's a folk metal musician, and he does it like once a month with all these folk metal musicians from all over the place. And it was actually where he got the idea from. So and it was basically just like local, most of them were like Pacific Northwestern Canadian artists getting together to hang out and have a couple of beers and take questions from fans. So it was a really cool thing. And we want to do more of that, but we were hoping to do it on our Twitch channel, because we started when we got back from the tour that never was.
Right.
Yeah.
We just started a Twitch channel because it was like, okay, well, we can't tour. We're not going to be able to tour for a while. So how are we going to stay close to our fans? And that was kind of what we came up with. And I think that Twitch is just like exploding for musicians right now, like big time because of that. And these streaming shows are becoming really popular. I know Suicide Silence is doing like geo-targeted streaming shows. So only people from like this state can buy a ticket to these particular streams and that kind of thing. And and that's kind of a really cool idea. They do the stream and they're like, "What's up, Chicago?" Or
that's great. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
Only people from Chicago are able to watch it. So yeah, I think that's kind of cool. But they also, I'm sure, don't have day jobs and they're only making money from music right now. So we don't really have the time to do that kind of thing. But we are going to try our best to stay connected. Yeah.
Right. Definitely. Yeah. Now, Brittney, real quick. You mentioned before that you had written previously about being a local band in Canada back in the day when you were.
Yeah.
Canada is just not known as a hotbed for power metal bands. I mean, it's really not. And how is it that you guys were able to not only grow artistically, but also grow enough to where you would get label interest and get a label deal in an area that's not, it's not full of power metal bands where you would even have, audience and like bands that you could play with to build your craft?
Yeah. I mean, it was, we were just kind of like an amalgamation of artists that slowly found each other over time, I think. Power metal, is not big in Canada. And I mean, there are a lot of power metal fans, but there's just not a lot of bands that do it.
Sure.
So we were very much kind of on our own at the beginning there, but we were also very death metal influenced at the beginning there as well. Like Braden was just as equally a vocalist as I was in the early days. And but the thing is that when Braden left, when Mike left, we got Grant, and he is a big power metal fan. And then when Braden left, we got Andrew, and he's a super big power metal fan. So it was kind of like slowly we grew from this band that was an amalgamation of everything to all the members being like super in love with power metal and progressive metal and traditional heavy metal and that kind of thing. So all of a sudden, all of us were like on the exact same path sound wise.
Okay.
So I think that was really a big part of it. Once we all kind of were heading in the same direction.
Sure.
But yeah.
So at this point, now you're obviously, you signed with Napalm and you're getting out there. Even obviously right now nobody's getting out anywhere, but the band is out there. Does the focus now change from being Canadian to trying to be more European, maybe not based, but focused?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, it's hard to get noticed when you're over here, for sure. But we've always been kind of influenced by European sounds. But I just feel like in this day and age where everyone has access to everything and it's all digital, and, you know, it's not like distribution is just only in Europe for certain things. It's all
Sure.
over the world now. I just don't
Mhm.
think that really those kind of, you know, those types of diversifications of metal exist. It's not like this is European metal. I just don't think it's like that anymore.
Mhm.
It's like I get, you know, I've been told that there aren't that many power metal bands from North America because it's, you know, it's just not that popular here. But it's also kind of just like, yeah, we get noticed faster over in Europe for that kind of genre, sure. But I don't think that makes it that, you know, like it's not European metal because of that. It's just that I think in general, every kind of metal is a little bit more embraced over there than it is here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
Good point.
we tried to book shows in Florida, like can't remember when it was, not on our last tour, but the one before, and they were like, power metal doesn't do well here. Not interested. And we're just like, what? Like, you can't do that to people. I was like, I know we have
Mhm.
fans in Florida. Like, don't decide for everyone else what's cool
Right.
in your
Yeah,
country. You
sure.
know, so
Mhm.
just kind of open
Yeah.
to all things now, really.
It's really frustrating as, you know, a North American metal fan to watch, like this weekend, Vakken's doing the Vakken live stream broadcast all weekend. And, you know, you just see 100,000 people loving this kind of music for days on end. And it's frustrating that there's not a single promoter in the North American hemisphere that
Mhm.
can watch that and say, man, there's a lot of money that we're leaving on the table by not doing something similar year after year.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
there is Prog Power down in Atlanta when we played that
Mhm.
one as well. And it's a smaller festival for sure, but it was awesome. It was like a
Mm.
killer scene, rad people. It was really, you know, an honor to be a part of the whole thing. But
Sure.
that's kind of really it when
Yeah.
you think about it.
Yeah, something
And
like
But even that one, it's amazing that one hasn't grown bigger because I've been to Prog Power too, and it's sold to the gills every single time.
yeah, it
Yeah.
really is. And I mean, I think it's also kind of based on what the promoters want to do and what they got time for, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
How much they can afford, because Vakken is huge, right? And
Right.
it's a big investment. So
Mhm.
Mhm.
but yeah, I mean, I had a question the other day that someone was like, Europeans just like that, you know, kind of metal more or something like that. And it's like, yeah, but when you look at the crowd at Vakken, half of them are from North America. A lot of people travel to
Mhm.
Right.
that place to see it because it's not available here. It's
Mhm.
not that they don't like it, it's just that it's not here. So yeah, it's kind of again that same thing where, you know, the promoters or people that are putting on these festivals are deciding what they think people like, and instead of, you know, just kind of giving it a shot or allowing other genres on the bill, that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
Right, definitely.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
one thing people of all genre preferences should give a shot is the new one from Unleash the Archers. It's called Abyss. It is fantastic. You should definitely check that out. And I'll tell you what, Brittney, why don't you pick a song that we could share with the fans to wrap this one up?
any song off the record? Is this gonna
Yeah,
come out
any-
after? Okay.
Yeah.
Probably Legacy is one of my favorites.
All right.
Great.
Well, let's check it out right now. This is Legacy. It is Unleash the Archers, and this is Aftershocks.
Thanks for listening to Aftershocks. For more episodes, go to our website at www.aftershockspodcast.com. Visit us on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages for more news and information on the podcast. And be sure to subscribe, listen to, and review all episodes on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all other podcast platforms. For your music listening pleasure, visit our website or go to www.shockwavesradio.com. For all comments and questions, please email us at info@aftershockspodcast.com.